I'm in the middle of class. A class that you are enrolled in.
Sup, babe?
We created a revolutionary technology that gives us unprecedented access to the animal world. We call it Hopper. This into this. Mabel, be careful!
Hey, what's your name, Beaver?
Babel?
You want to live here, you better learn.
We're still alive?
Rule number 2, when you gotta eat.
Question. We do not use hopping technology. She found the button. The Animal Council has been summoned. The
Squish?
They squish us! Why?
Hoppers 2026 is an upcoming animated adventure comedy movie expected to release in 2026 with a planned worldwide theatrical release first followed by its OTT release likely on Disney Plus after completing its cinema run, making it a highly anticipated family entertainment film produced in the United States under a major Hollywood animation studio with cutting-edge CGI technology and a strong focus on storytelling and visual experience, and the estimated budget of this movie is around $150 to $180 million, placing it among big-budget animated films with high expectations at the global box office, where early predictions suggest that if the movie receives a strong audience response it could earn between $500 to $700 million worldwide due to its unique concept and wide family appeal, and the movie is designed for all age groups, combining comedy, adventure, science fiction and emotional storytelling into one engaging narrative. And the story begins with a brilliant young female scientist who develops an advanced experimental technology that allows human consciousness to temporarily transfer into the bodies of animals, giving humans the ability to explore and understand the animal world from within. And this groundbreaking invention becomes the central theme of the movie as it opens the door to a completely different perspective on life, where human intelligence meets animal instincts, creating both humorous and emotional situations throughout the film. And during one of her experiments something unexpected happens and she ends up transferring her mind into the body of a beaver, which immediately throws her into a completely new environment where survival depends on instincts, teamwork and understanding nature rather than logic and technology. And as she begins to adapt to this new reality she encounters a variety of animals, each with their own personalities, social structures and ways of communicating, which are presented through highly detailed and visually stunning animation that brings forests, rivers and natural habitats to life in a vibrant and immersive way. And initially her main goal is to find a way back to her human body, but as she spends more time living among animals she slowly begins to understand their struggles and the challenges they face due to human activities such as deforestation, pollution and habitat destruction, which adds an emotional depth to the story and transforms her journey from a scientific experiment into a meaningful mission where she decides to help protect the animal world and find a way to bridge the gap between humans and nature. The movie balances humor and emotion very effectively, with many scenes showcasing the contrast between human thinking and animal behavior, resulting in funny and relatable moments while also delivering a strong message about environmental awareness, empathy and coexistence. The animation quality is expected to be one of the biggest highlights of the film, featuring realistic textures, dynamic lighting, fluid character movements and large-scale environments that enhance the storytelling experience and make the world feel alive and believable. The voice cast is also expected to include popular Hollywood actors who will bring depth and personality to the characters, making them more engaging. and memorable for the audience. And in terms of release, after completing its theatrical run, the movie is likely to premiere on Disney Plus within 45 to 60 days, allowing a wider audience to experience it at home. And if the movie performs well both critically and commercially, there is a strong possibility of a sequel where the story could expand further, exploring new animal species, new environments, and more advanced uses of the consciousness transfer technology, making it a potential franchise in the animated genre. Overall, Hopper's 2026 promises to be a visually spectacular, emotionally engaging, and highly entertaining movie that combines adventure, comedy, and meaningful storytelling, making it perfect for YouTube narration content, as it offers a mix of excitement, humor, and a powerful message that can attract a wide audience across different age groups. As the story continues, the young scientist, now fully trapped inside the body of a beaver, begins to experience the animal world in a much deeper and more intense way than she ever imagined, because what initially felt like an exciting experiment quickly turns into a real survival challenge, where every moment matters and every decision can mean the difference between safety and danger. She starts learning how to move like a beaver, swim through strong river currents, build simple structures, and communicate using sounds and body language instead of words, which creates both humorous and emotional situations as her human mindset struggles to adapt to animal instincts. At first she tries to control everything logically like she would as a human, but she soon realizes that animals rely more on instinct and natural awareness than complex thinking, and this realization becomes a turning point in her journey because she starts letting go of control and begins trusting her new instincts, which helps her survive and connect better with the other animals around her. During this phase she meets a group of beavers who live together as a family unit, and through them she starts understanding the importance of teamwork, cooperation, and community in the animal world, where every member has a role and survival depends on working together. These interactions are shown with a mix of emotional depth and light comedy, as she often makes mistakes due to her human thinking, which leads to funny situations but also teaches her valuable lessons about life in the wild. At the same time, the movie expands its world building by showing different animal species and their unique ways of living, including predators who pose constant threats and other creatures who have their own struggles, creating a rich and dynamic ecosystem that feels alive and realistic. As she spends more time in this world, she begins noticing signs of danger that go beyond natural survival challenges, such as areas of the forest being destroyed, water becoming polluted, and food sources becoming scarce due to human interference, which slowly builds the central conflict of the story and adds urgency to her journey. She starts realizing that what she once saw as normal human development is actually causing serious harm to the animal world, and this realization creates an emotional shift in her character as she begins feeling responsible for the damage and starts thinking about how she can fix it, even though she is trapped in an animal's body. Meanwhile, back in the human world, her experiment has caused concern among her colleagues, who are trying to figure out how to bring her back safely while also dealing with the risks of the technology falling into the wrong hands, which adds another layer to the story, connecting the animal world and human world in a meaningful way. The narrative cleverly moves between these two perspectives, showing how actions in one world affect the other and building tension as both sides work toward a solution. As the scientist continues her journey, she begins forming a strong emotional bond with the animals, especially the beaver family, who start trusting her as one of their own, and this connection becomes a key part of the story because it motivates her to go beyond just returning to her human form and instead focus on protecting the world she is now a part of. The tone of the movie balances adventure, humor, and emotional storytelling perfectly, keeping the audience engaged while also delivering important messages about nature, responsibility, and empathy. Visually, the scenes become more intense and detailed as the environment changes from peaceful river areas to more dangerous zones filled with obstacles and threats, which keeps the story exciting and dynamic. This part of the movie sets up the foundation for the bigger conflict ahead as the main character begins transitioning from an observer to a protector, making it clear that her journey is no longer just about survival or returning home, but about making a difference in a world that now depends on her understanding, courage and willingness to act before it is too late. And this shift marks the true beginning of her transformation from a scientist into a hero within the animal world. As the journey continues deeper into the animal world, the young scientist, now fully adapting to her life as a beaver, begins to understand that survival is not the only challenge she must face, because the environment around her is changing rapidly and the threats are becoming more serious and complex than she initially thought. The peaceful river and forest areas that once felt safe now show clear signs of disruption as water levels fluctuate unnaturally. Certain regions become polluted and food sources begin disappearing, which creates tension among the animal communities and forces them to move or fight for survival. She starts noticing how different animal groups react differently to these changes, with some trying to adapt while others become aggressive and desperate, leading to conflicts that highlight how fragile the balance of nature really is. During this phase, she becomes more involved in the lives of the beaver family that accepted her as one of their own, and begins helping them build stronger structures and find safer locations to survive, using both her human intelligence and newly developed animal instincts, which creates a unique combination of problem solving that becomes one of her biggest strengths. However, her actions also begin attracting attention from predators and other animals who start noticing that she is different from the rest, and this adds another layer of danger to her situation, because she must now protect not only herself but also those who trust her. At the same time, the movie introduces a major turning point as she discovers the real cause behind the environmental damage when she reaches a section of the forest where human construction is actively destroying habitats and redirecting water flow, which directly impacts the entire ecosystem. And this moment becomes emotionally powerful because she is forced to confront the reality that her own species is responsible for the suffering she is witnessing. This realization hits her deeply and changes her perspective completely as she begins questioning not just her experiment but also the way humans interact with nature and the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, in the human world, her colleagues start making progress in understanding the technology she created and begin developing a plan to bring her consciousness back, but at the same time they realize that the device has potential risks if misused, which introduces a secondary conflict involving corporate or external interests who might want to use this technology for profit or control, adding tension and urgency to their efforts. Back in the animal world, she decides that she cannot remain passive any longer and begins taking active steps to protect the environment and warn other animals about the dangers ahead, even though communication barriers make this task extremely difficult. She starts creating strategies to help different animal groups work together despite their natural differences, which reflects her growth as a character from someone who was once focused only on her own goals to someone who now thinks about the greater good. The storytelling during this part becomes more intense and emotionally engaging as the stakes continue rising and the audience begins to see the bigger picture of how interconnected all life forms are and how a single disruption can affect an entire ecosystem. Visually, the movie continues to impress with detailed animation of environmental destruction contrasting with the beauty of untouched nature, which strengthens the emotional impact of the story and keeps viewers fully immersed in the experience. This part builds the foundation for the larger conflict that will define the rest of the movie as the main character prepares to take bigger risks and face more dangerous challenges in order to protect the world she has come to understand and care about, deeply marking her transformation into a true hero who is ready to stand against forces much bigger than herself in order to restore balance and protect the future of the animal world. As the story intensifies, the young scientist, now fully transformed by her experiences in the animal world, begins stepping into a leadership role among the animals because the threats around them are no longer small or isolated but are rapidly growing into a large-scale crisis that affects the entire ecosystem. The river systems continue changing due to human interference, causing floods in some areas and drought in others, which forces multiple animal groups to leave their natural habitats and search for safer regions, leading to overcrowding, competition, and rising tension among species that were once able to coexist peacefully. She realizes that if these animals continue acting separately, they will not survive the coming challenges, and this pushes her to do something extremely difficult, which is to unite different animal groups despite their natural instincts and differences. Using her unique advantage of human intelligence combined with her understanding of animal behavior, she starts creating simple but effective ways to communicate warnings and coordinate movements between different species, which leads to several powerful and emotional scenes where animals that would normally be enemies begin working together for survival. This part of the story highlights one of the strongest themes of the movie, which is unity and cooperation in the face of a common threat, and shows how even the smallest creatures can make a difference when they work together. However, her growing influence also attracts more danger because predators and other powerful animals begin seeing her as a threat or an opportunity, which creates intense moments of conflict where she must use both strategy and instinct to protect herself and those who trust her. At the same time, the environmental destruction becomes more visible and severe as large machines from the human world begin appearing in the forest, cutting down trees, blocking rivers, and completely altering the natural landscape, which creates visually dramatic sequences that show the contrast between the beauty of nature and the destruction caused by human actions. This deeply affects her emotionally because she now sees the world not as a human observer but as a part of the ecosystem that is being destroyed, and this internal conflict adds depth to her character as she struggles with guilt, responsibility, and the desire to fix what is happening. Meanwhile, in the human world, the situation becomes more urgent as her colleagues realize that her consciousness has been inside the animal body for too long, which could make it difficult or even impossible to bring her back safely, and this creates a race against time where they must find a solution before it is too late, while also dealing with external pressures from those who want to use the technology for their own benefit. Back in the animal world, she begins planning a bold move to directly confront the source of the destruction, even though it puts her at great risk because she understands that simply adapting is not enough and that the root cause of the problem must be addressed if the animals are to survive. This decision marks a major turning point in the story as it shifts from survival and adaptation to action and resistance, showing her complete transformation into a character who is willing to fight for what is right even when the odds are against her. The tension builds as the animals prepare for what could be their biggest challenge yet, and the audience is left with a sense of anticipation, knowing that the next phase of the story will involve even higher stakes, greater risks, and a powerful confrontation between nature and human influence that will determine the future of the entire ecosystem. As the story moves into a more intense and decisive phase, the young scientist, now fully embraced as a leader within the animal world, begins preparing for a direct confrontation with the growing human threat because the destruction has reached a point where survival alone is no longer enough and action becomes necessary. The forest continues changing rapidly as more machines arrive, cutting down trees, altering river paths, and forcing entire animal populations to migrate, which creates chaos across the ecosystem and pushes different species into dangerous territories where conflicts become unavoidable. She realizes that if this continues unchecked, the entire habitat will collapse and countless lives will be lost, which strengthens her determination to stop the destruction at its source, even though she knows the risks involved. Using her combined understanding of human behavior and animal instincts, she starts organizing a coordinated effort where different animal groups take on specific roles such as scouting, gathering information, creating diversions, and protecting vulnerable members of their communities, which leads to a series of strategic and emotionally powerful moments where unity becomes the key to survival. This part of the story highlights her growth from a scientist observing the world to a true leader capable of inspiring others to take action for a greater cause. At the same time, the movie increases tension by introducing more direct encounters with human activity as she and her allies move closer to construction sites where large machines operate, creating loud and dangerous environments that contrast sharply with the natural world they are trying to protect. These scenes are visually intense, showing the scale of human impact while also emphasizing how small and vulnerable the animals are in comparison, which makes their courage and determination even more powerful. During one of these encounters, she witnesses the destruction of a key part of the habitat that holds emotional significance for her and the animals she has bonded with, which becomes a defining moment that removes any remaining hesitation she had and fully commits her to the mission of stopping the damage no matter the cost. Meanwhile, in the human world, the situation becomes even more complicated as her colleagues begin to realize that the longer she stays connected to the animal body, the harder it will be to bring her back, and they also uncover signs that the technology she created is attracting attention from powerful organizations who may want to control or misuse it, which adds urgency and tension to their efforts as they race to secure the device and complete the recovery process before it falls into the wrong hands. Back in the animal world, she begins executing her plan, which involves disrupting the construction process and forcing humans to notice the consequences of their actions without causing harm, which reflects the movie's deeper message about coexistence rather than conflict. This leads to a series of action-packed sequences where animals use their environment, intelligence, and teamwork to create obstacles that slow down the destruction while also sending a clear signal that the natural world cannot be ignored. The balance between action, humor, and emotion remains strong as the story keeps the audience engaged while also delivering a meaningful message about responsibility and respect for nature. As the tension builds toward a major confrontation, the stakes become higher than ever, and it becomes clear that the outcome of this phase will determine whether the animals can protect their home or if the destruction will continue, leading to irreversible consequences. This part of the movie sets the stage for an even bigger and more dramatic conflict ahead, where the main character will be pushed to her limits and forced to make choices that will define not only her future but the fate of the entire ecosystem she has come to love and fight for. As the conflict reaches a more dangerous and unpredictable stage, the young scientist, now fully acting as a leader among the animals, begins executing the most critical phase of her plan, which involves directly interfering with the human construction operations that are destroying the ecosystem, because she understands that small disruptions are no longer enough and a strong, coordinated effort is required to force a real change. The forest becomes a battlefield of strategy where different animal groups work together in ways never seen before. As birds provide aerial surveillance, small animals move quickly through tight spaces to gather information, larger creatures create physical barriers, and aquatic animals manipulate water flow to disrupt machinery, creating a powerful visual of unity and intelligence within nature. These sequences are both thrilling and emotional as they show how even the smallest actions can contribute to a larger impact when everyone works together toward a common goal. The scientist uses her knowledge of human systems to predict how the workers and machines will respond, allowing her to guide the animals in creating effective disruptions without causing harm, which aligns with her belief that the solution should not be based on destruction but on awareness and balance. However, the risks become much greater during this phase because the humans begin noticing unusual patterns in their operations as machines fail unexpectedly, paths are blocked, and natural obstacles seem to appear in coordinated ways, leading them to increase their efforts and bring in more advanced equipment, which escalates the tension and makes the situation even more dangerous for the animals involved. During one intense moment, she and her allies come dangerously close to being caught, which creates a high-stakes sequence that tests her ability to think quickly and adapt under pressure, showing how far she has come from the inexperienced scientist at the beginning of the story. At the same time, the emotional weight of the situation continues to grow as she sees firsthand the destruction of more habitats and the fear among the animals who rely on her leadership to survive, which strengthens her resolve but also adds pressure as she realizes that failure is not an option. Meanwhile, in the human world, her colleagues are racing against time to stabilize the technology and bring her back before the connection becomes permanent, and they also begin uncovering evidence that a powerful organization is attempting to gain access to the device, which introduces a parallel conflict that increases the urgency of the situation, because if the technology falls into the wrong hands, it could lead to even greater consequences beyond the current crisis. Back in the animal world, the coordinated efforts begin showing results as the construction slows down and the humans start facing repeated obstacles that force them to reconsider their approach, creating a small but important victory that gives hope to the animals and strengthens their belief that they can protect their home. However, the story makes it clear that this is only a temporary success and that a larger confrontation is still ahead, because the underlying problem has not been fully solved and the forces behind the destruction are still active and determined to continue their work. As the tension builds toward this inevitable clash, the scientist begins preparing for the next stage of her plan, which will require even greater risk and sacrifice, because she now understands that true change cannot be achieved without confronting the root of the problem directly, and this realization sets the stage for the most intense and emotional part of the story, where the future of the entire ecosystem will be decided. As the story moves into its most intense phase, the young scientist, now fully transformed into a true leader of the animal world, prepares for the biggest and most dangerous step of her journey, which is to directly confront the root cause behind the destruction, because she understands that temporary disruptions will not be enough to save the ecosystem and that a permanent solution requires a bold and risky action. The forest and river environment around her continues to change rapidly as human operations become more aggressive, with heavier machines, stronger structures, and more workers entering the area, which creates a sense of urgency and danger that can be felt in every moment of the story. The animals begin feeling the pressure as their safe zones shrink and resources become harder to find, forcing them to rely even more on the scientist's guidance and leadership, which adds emotional weight to her decisions, because she knows that every move she makes affects the survival of countless lives. She begins developing a final strategy that involves targeting the central operation point, where the main control of the construction activity is located, and this plan requires precise coordination between multiple animal groups, each playing a crucial role in ensuring its success. The preparation for this mission is filled with tension and anticipation as the animals gather information, rehearse movements, and overcome their natural fears to stand together against a threat far greater than themselves, which highlights one of the strongest emotional aspects of the film, showing courage, unity, and trust in the face of overwhelming odds. At the same time, the scientist struggles internally, because she knows that this mission could be dangerous not only for the animals but also for herself, as her connection to the animal body becomes increasingly unstable and there is a real possibility that she may not be able to return to her human form if something goes wrong. This internal conflict adds depth to her character, as she must choose between her own safety and the responsibility she now feels toward the world she has become a part of. Meanwhile, in the human world, the situation reaches a critical point as her colleagues finalize a potential solution to bring her back, but they also discover that the technology has attracted serious attention from powerful interests who are trying to gain control over it, which creates a race against time and adds another layer of tension as they must act quickly before everything spirals out of control. Back in the animal world, the mission begins with a series of coordinated actions where different groups move into position, creating distractions, blocking paths, and guiding the scientist toward the central area where she will attempt to disrupt the operation at its core. The scenes are filled with high energy and suspense as the animals work together in perfect coordination, showcasing the strength of unity and the power of collective effort. The scientist uses everything she has learned, combining human intelligence with animal instincts to navigate through dangerous terrain, avoid detection, and reach her target while facing multiple obstacles along the way that test her courage and determination. As she gets closer to the center of the operation, the stakes become higher than ever, and it becomes clear that the outcome of this mission will determine the future of the entire ecosystem, either leading to a new balance where humans and nature can coexist, or resulting in irreversible destruction that will change everything forever. And this moment sets the stage for the final confrontation, where all the elements of the story come together in a powerful and emotional climax that will define the true meaning of her journey. As the mission reaches its most critical stage, the young scientist, now fully committed to protecting the animal world, moves deeper into the heart of the human construction zone, where the scale of destruction becomes more intense and overwhelming than anything she has seen before, with massive machines tearing through forests, diverting rivers, and reshaping the land in ways that threaten to permanently destroy the natural balance of the ecosystem. The environment feels hostile and unnatural as loud mechanical sounds replace the peaceful rhythms of nature, creating a powerful contrast that highlights what is at stake and why her mission is so important. She carefully navigates through this dangerous area, using both her intelligence and instincts to avoid detection, while also coordinating with the animals who are supporting her from different directions, creating distractions, blocking paths, and guiding her toward the central control point where she believes she can make the biggest impact. The tension during this phase is extremely high because every movement carries risk, and a single mistake could expose her and the entire plan, leading to failure. As she gets closer to the core of the operation, she begins to understand the full extent of the system controlling the destruction, including how the machines are operated, how the workers communicate, and how the entire process is designed to continue without interruption, which gives her the insight she needs to attempt a targeted disruption that could stop everything at once. Meanwhile, the animals continue playing their roles with remarkable coordination, showing how far they have come from acting as individuals to becoming a unified force capable of challenging a much larger threat. These moments are filled with both action and emotion, as the audience sees the courage of each creature contributing in their own way regardless of size or strength, reinforcing the film's message that every effort matters. At the same time, her internal struggle becomes more intense because she is now facing the reality that her actions could determine not only the survival of the animals but also her own future, as the connection to her human body becomes increasingly unstable and the possibility of being permanently trapped in the animal world becomes more real. Despite this, she chooses to move forward, showing her complete transformation into a character who prioritizes the greater good over personal safety. Meanwhile, in the human world, her colleagues are on the verge of completing the recovery process, but they face unexpected complications as the system becomes unstable and external forces begin interfering, creating a parallel sense of urgency that mirrors the danger she is facing in the animal world. Back in the construction zone, she finally reaches the central control area where the main operations are being managed, and prepares to execute the most important part of her plan, which involves disrupting the system in a way that forces the humans to stop and reconsider their actions rather than simply causing damage. This moment is filled with suspense as everything she has learned throughout the story comes together, and the audience is left on the edge, knowing that the next move she makes will determine whether the animals can save their home or if the destruction will continue, leading to irreversible consequences. The scene builds toward a powerful turning point that sets up the final confrontation, where the balance between nature and human progress will be tested in the most dramatic way possible. As the tension reaches its peak, the young scientist, standing at the center of the human construction system, prepares to execute the most crucial step of her plan, because this moment will determine whether all the efforts made by the animals will succeed or fail, and the stakes have never been higher as the destruction around her continues at full force, with machines operating relentlessly and the environment on the verge of irreversible damage. She carefully observes the system, analyzing the patterns of movement, communication, and control, using her human intelligence to identify the exact point where a disruption would have the maximum impact without causing harm, which aligns with her belief that the solution must lead to awareness rather than destruction. The atmosphere is filled with suspense as every second counts, and the risk of being discovered increases with each movement she makes. Meanwhile, the animals continue supporting her from a distance, creating diversions and slowing down operations in subtle ways, which allows her to move closer to the core system without attracting too much attention. This coordination reflects the strength of unity that has been built throughout the story and shows how far they have come from acting individually to working as a single force with a shared purpose. As she finally reaches the central control mechanism, she begins implementing her plan using the environment itself to trigger a chain reaction that disrupts the machinery, causing systems to shut down and forcing the human operators to pause and reassess the situation. The sequence is visually intense as machines begin malfunctioning, alarms go off, and the entire operation slows down, creating a moment of chaos that contrasts with the controlled destruction seen earlier. However, this success comes with immediate danger as the humans quickly realize that something unusual is happening and begin investigating the source, which puts her at risk of being discovered and captured. At the same time, the animals face increased danger as the humans attempt to regain control of the situation, leading to several intense moments where quick thinking and teamwork are required to avoid disaster. During this critical phase, she faces a difficult choice because while her actions have successfully disrupted the operation, they have not yet solved the underlying problem, and there is a strong possibility that the humans will simply restart their work once the issue is fixed. This realization pushes her to think beyond immediate success and consider how she can create a lasting impact that forces a real change in behavior rather than just a temporary pause. Meanwhile, in the human world, her colleagues finally manage to stabilize the technology enough to attempt bringing her back, but they are running out of time as the connection becomes weaker and the risks increase, which creates a parallel race against time that mirrors the urgency of her mission in the animal world. As the situation escalates, the story builds toward a powerful turning point where she must make a final decision that will define not only her fate but also the future of the ecosystem she has fought so hard to protect. The emotional weight of this moment is significant because it represents the culmination of her journey from a curious scientist to a courageous protector willing to risk everything for a cause greater than herself, and the audience is left anticipating the outcome of this decisive moment, knowing that whatever happens next will shape the final resolution of the story in a meaningful and impactful way. As the situation spirals into its most intense and Nirnayaka phase, the young scientist realizes that disrupting the system is not enough because the humans will eventually restart their operations and the destruction will continue unless something forces them to truly understand the consequences of their actions, and this realization leads her to make the most important and risky decision of her entire journey, which is to reveal the impact of their actions in a way that cannot be ignored. The environment around her remains chaotic as machines begin restarting, workers attempt to regain control, and the tension reaches an extreme level where every second feels critical and dangerous. She quickly adapts her strategy using her knowledge of both human systems and animal behavior to create a powerful sequence of events that brings the reality of environmental destruction directly in front of the humans. With the help of the animals, she begins guiding them into visible areas where their suffering and displacement can be clearly seen, forcing the humans to confront the consequences of their work in a way they cannot overlook. This leads to a series of emotionally charged moments where the contrast between human progress and natural life becomes undeniable as animals struggle to survive in the very spaces being destroyed. The film uses these scenes to deliver one of its strongest messages, showing that true change comes not from conflict but from understanding and awareness. At the same time, the risk increases dramatically as her presence becomes more noticeable and the possibility of being captured or harmed becomes very real, creating a high-stakes situation that keeps the tension at its peak. Meanwhile, the animals continue supporting her despite the danger, demonstrating the deep trust and unity that has developed throughout the story and reinforcing the idea that even the smallest voices can come together to create a powerful impact. In the human world, her colleagues are on the verge of completing the process to bring her back, but unexpected complications arise as the system begins to destabilize under the pressure of prolonged use and external interference, making it uncertain whether the transfer will succeed or fail. This parallel conflict adds emotional depth as the audience is made aware that she may have to choose between returning to her human life or staying behind to ensure the safety of the animal world. Back at the construction site, her actions begin to have a visible effect as the humans start questioning their work, slowing down operations and observing the situation more carefully, which indicates that her plan is beginning to work, but the outcome is still uncertain and could change at any moment. The emotional intensity of this phase continues to build as she faces the possibility of sacrifice, understanding that true change often requires personal loss and difficult choices. This moment represents the climax of her transformation from a scientist driven by curiosity to a hero driven by responsibility, empathy, and courage, as she stands at the center of a conflict that goes beyond survival and becomes a question of coexistence and respect between humans and nature. The scene sets up the final stages of the story, where the consequences of her actions will unfold and the ultimate resolution will determine whether balance can be restored or if the world will continue on a path of destruction, leaving a lasting impact on both the characters and the audience. As the story moves beyond the intense turning point, the impact of the young scientist's actions begins to spread through both the animal world and the human world, creating a powerful shift in the narrative where the consequences of everything that has happened start becoming visible and meaningful. The construction site, which was once filled with constant noise and destruction, now slows down significantly as the workers begin observing the unusual behavior of animals and the disruptions that have taken place, leading to confusion, hesitation, and eventually a pause in operations. This moment becomes crucial because it represents the first time the humans truly begin to question their actions rather than simply continuing their work without thinking about the impact. The scientist watches this change carefully, understanding that while this is a step in the right direction, it is still fragile and could easily reverse if not reinforced with a stronger message. She realizes that awareness alone is not enough and that a deeper connection must be created between humans and nature for real change to happen. Meanwhile, the animals begin experiencing a brief moment of relief as the immediate threat reduces, allowing them to regroup and recover from the chaos they have faced, but the fear and uncertainty still remain because they know that the danger is not completely gone. The bond between the scientist and the animals becomes even stronger during this phase as they begin to trust her not just as a leader but as someone who truly understands their world and is willing to fight for it. At the same time, her internal struggle reaches a new level as she becomes aware that the window to return to her human body is closing rapidly, and the longer she stays, the higher the risk of losing that connection permanently, which forces her to confront one of the most difficult decisions of her life. In the human world, her colleagues continue working urgently to stabilize the system and prepare for the transfer, but they face increasing pressure from external forces who are trying to gain control over the technology, adding another layer of tension and making it clear that the situation is far from resolved. Back in the animal world, the environment begins showing small signs of recovery as water flows more naturally and some areas start stabilizing, which gives hope that the balance can be restored if the right actions are taken. However, the scientist understands that this is only the beginning and that the long-term future depends on whether humans choose to change their approach or continue their destructive path. She begins thinking about how to create a lasting impact that goes beyond temporary disruption and leads to a sustainable solution where both worlds can coexist without harming each other. This phase of the story becomes deeply emotional and reflective as it focuses on the consequences of choices, the importance of understanding, and the power of empathy in bringing about real change. The narrative slows down slightly to allow the audience to absorb the significance of what has happened while also building anticipation for the final decisions that will determine the outcome of the story. As she stands between two worlds, facing the possibility of losing one to save the other, the scientist represents the central theme of the film, which is the responsibility that comes with knowledge and the courage required to act on it. Setting the stage for the final chapters where her ultimate choice will define not only her own future but the fate of the entire ecosystem she has fought so hard to protect. As the story moves into its final emotional stretch, the young scientist finds herself standing at the crossroads between two worlds where every second becomes more important because the connection between her human body and her consciousness inside the animal form is weakening rapidly and the window to return is almost closing, which creates an intense internal conflict that drives this part of the narrative forward. On one side she has the chance to go back to her human life, her family, her identity and everything she once knew, while on the other side she now feels a deep responsibility toward the animal world that has accepted her, trusted her and depends on her leadership to survive in a rapidly changing environment. This emotional dilemma becomes the core of this phase as she reflects on everything she has experienced from the beginning of her journey to this moment, realizing how much she has changed and how her understanding of life has evolved beyond what she ever imagined. Meanwhile, the human world continues reacting to the events that unfolded at the construction site as the sudden disruptions and unusual animal behavior begin drawing attention from higher authorities, environmental experts and media, which starts creating a broader awareness about the impact of human activities on nature. And this development becomes a turning point because the issue is no longer isolated but is now part of a larger conversation that could lead to real change. Her colleagues use this opportunity to push for a solution that not only brings her back safely but also ensures that the technology she created is used responsibly and not exploited for profit or control, which adds another layer of significance to their efforts. Back in the animal world, the temporary peace continues, but there is still uncertainty as the animals remain cautious, unsure whether the humans will return and resume their work or if a lasting change is truly possible. The scientist begins taking final steps to secure the safety of the ecosystem by guiding the animals toward more stable areas, strengthening their coordination and ensuring that they can survive even if she is no longer there to lead them, which shows her growth into a selfless leader who prioritizes the future of others over her own desires. At the same time, she starts preparing herself for the possibility that she may have to make a permanent choice and accept the consequences of that decision, whether it means returning to her human life or staying behind to protect the world she has come to love. The emotional weight of this moment is heightened by the strong bonds she has formed, especially with the beaver family, who see her as one of their own and whose trust and affection make the decision even more difficult. Visually, the film captures this phase with a mix of calm natural beauty and underlying tension, showing how the world is slowly healing while still carrying the scars of what has happened. This part of the story builds toward the final decision that will define the ending as the scientist stands ready to choose between two paths, knowing that whatever she decides will shape not only her own future but also the future of the connection between humans and the natural world, creating a powerful and meaningful setup for the conclusion of her journey as the story reaches one of its most emotional and defining moments. The young scientist stands on the edge of making the final decision that will determine the direction of her life, because the connection between her human body and her consciousness inside the animal form is now extremely unstable, and the system created by her colleagues is ready for one last attempt to bring her back, which means that she has only a limited amount of time left to choose whether she will return to her human world or remain in the animal world that has now become a part of her identity. This moment is filled with deep reflection as she thinks about everything she has experienced, from the curiosity that led her to create the technology to the unexpected journey that changed her understanding of life, and the bonds she has formed with the animals who now see her as one of their own. The emotional weight of this decision is amplified by the realization that her choice will not only affect her but also the future of the ecosystem, because if she leaves, the animals will lose a leader who helped unite them and guided them through one of the most difficult challenges they have ever faced. Meanwhile, the human world continues responding to the events that took place as the awareness created by her actions begins influencing decisions at a larger level, with discussions about environmental protection, conservation, and responsible development gaining momentum, which shows that her efforts have already started creating change beyond the immediate situation. Her colleagues communicate with her through the device, explaining that this is the last safe opportunity to return and warning her that if she stays longer, the connection may be lost permanently, making it impossible for her to ever go back. This information adds urgency and tension to the moment, forcing her to confront the reality of her situation and make a choice without knowing exactly what the future will hold. Back in the animal world, the environment shows signs of recovery, with water flowing more naturally, plants beginning to grow back, and animal communities slowly stabilizing, which gives hope that balance can be restored, but also highlights how fragile that balance still is. The animals gather around her, sensing that something important is about to happen, and their presence creates a powerful emotional atmosphere as they show trust and connection without needing words, reinforcing the bond that has been built throughout the story. She realizes that her journey was never just about returning to her human life, but about understanding the world from a different perspective and using that knowledge to make a difference, which leads her to see her role in a new way, not just as a scientist but as a bridge between two worlds. This realization becomes the key to her decision, as she understands that whatever she chooses must contribute to a future where humans and nature can coexist rather than exist in conflict. The tension continues building as the final moment approaches, and the audience is drawn into the depth of her internal struggle, knowing that this choice will define the ending of the story and leave a lasting impact on both the characters and the message of the film. This part serves as the emotional peak of the narrative, where the themes of responsibility, empathy, and sacrifice come together, creating a powerful setup for the final resolution where her decision will shape the fate of both worlds in a meaningful and unforgettable way. As the final decision moment unfolds, the young scientist stands surrounded by the animals who have become her family, while the connection to her human world flickers weakly, signaling that the last opportunity to return is slipping away. And the emotional intensity of this scene reaches its highest point because everything she has experienced now comes together in one defining choice that will shape not only her future but also the future of the balance between humans and nature. She looks at the animals who trusted her, followed her, and stood with her against overwhelming odds, and realizes that her presence has given them hope, unity, and direction in a way that did not exist before. But at the same time, she also understands that her return to the human world could allow her to create change on a much larger scale, influencing policies, awareness, and the responsible use of the technology she created, which presents her with two equally important paths, both carrying responsibility and sacrifice. Meanwhile, her colleagues in the human world prepare for the final activation of the system, urging her to make a decision quickly because the connection is reaching its limit, and delaying further could result in losing the link permanently, which adds urgency and pressure to an already emotional moment. The film captures her internal conflict beautifully, as flashes of her human life and her journey in the animal world blend together, showing how deeply connected she has become to both sides and how difficult it is to choose one over the other. At the same time, the environment around her reflects this moment of transition, as the forest stands calm yet fragile, symbolizing the delicate balance that now depends on the choices made by both humans and nature moving forward. She begins to understand that her role is not limited to one world, and that the true solution lies in creating a connection between them rather than choosing one over the other, which leads her to think beyond a simple decision and consider a way to fulfill both responsibilities. This realization becomes the turning point of the story, as she decides to return to her human body, but with a clear purpose to act as a voice for the animal world, using her experience, knowledge, and emotional connection to bring about real change in how humans interact with nature. The moment of transfer becomes intense as the system activates and her consciousness begins shifting back to her human form, while the animals watch in silence, creating a powerful emotional scene that represents both separation and hope. As she returns to the human world, the transition is not just physical but symbolic, representing the bridge she has become between two worlds and the responsibility she now carries to ensure that the lessons she has learned are not forgotten. The animals slowly disperse as the environment begins stabilizing, further suggesting that while her physical presence may no longer be there, the impact of her actions will continue guiding them. This part of the story delivers a strong emotional resolution while also setting the stage for the final phase, where the consequences of her decision will unfold in the human world and determine whether the change she fought for can truly become a lasting reality. As the story transitions back into the human world, the young scientist regains consciousness in her own body after the intense and emotional transfer, but everything around her feels different because she is no longer the same person who began this journey, as her experiences in the animal world have completely transformed her perspective on life, responsibility, and the relationship between humans and nature. The first moments after her return are filled with relief and confusion as her colleagues gather around her, confirming that the transfer was successful, but also expressing concern about the risks she took and the consequences of the experiment, which nearly resulted in losing her permanently. However, it quickly becomes clear that she is not focused on the dangers she faced but on the mission that now lies ahead, because she understands that what she witnessed cannot be ignored and that she has a responsibility to use her knowledge to create meaningful change. The film begins showing how the impact of her actions at the construction site has already started influencing the human world, as reports of unusual events, environmental damage, and animal behavior begin attracting attention from scientists, environmental groups, and even media outlets, which creates an opportunity for her to bring awareness to the issue on a larger scale. She begins working closely with her team to present evidence of what is happening, including data observations and the results of her experience using the technology, which helps build a strong case for reconsidering how development projects are planned and executed, especially in sensitive ecosystems. At the same time, the threat of the technology being misused still exists, as powerful organizations continue showing interest in gaining control over it, which creates tension and forces her and her colleagues to take measures to secure their work and ensure that it is not used for harmful purposes. This adds a layer of conflict in the human world that mirrors the challenges she faced in the animal world, but now the stakes involve not just one ecosystem but the potential global impact of a powerful scientific advancement. Emotionally, she continues to feel connected to the animals and the world she left behind, often recalling moments from her journey, which reinforces her determination to protect that connection and act as a bridge between the two worlds. She begins advocating for stronger environmental policies, sustainable development, and responsible use of technology, using her experience as a powerful testimony that cannot be easily dismissed. The film balances these developments with moments of reflection where she processes the emotional weight of leaving behind the animals she formed bonds with, especially the beaver family, which adds depth to her character and keeps the emotional core of the story alive even after the shift back to the human world. As her efforts begin gaining attention and support, the narrative moves toward a broader impact where change is no longer limited to one location but has the potential to influence a larger system, creating hope that her journey has made a real difference. This part of the story sets the stage for the final resolution, where the long-term effects of her actions will be revealed and the message of coexistence, responsibility, and understanding between humans and nature will reach its conclusion in a powerful and meaningful way. As the story moves closer to its final resolution, the young scientist fully steps into her new role as a bridge between the human world and the natural world, using everything she learned during her time inside the animal body to influence real change on a larger scale, because she now understands that awareness alone is not enough and that action must follow in order to create a lasting impact. She begins working with environmental organizations, researchers, and policymakers, presenting her findings and experiences in a way that cannot be ignored, because unlike theoretical data, she has lived through the reality of what animals face, which gives her voice a unique credibility and emotional power that resonates with both experts and the general public. The construction project that was once causing destruction becomes a central case study as investigations are launched to examine its environmental impact, leading to temporary shutdowns and reviews that signal the beginning of change within the system. Meanwhile, her colleagues continue helping her refine the technology, ensuring that it is used responsibly and only for research and conservation purposes, while also taking strict measures to prevent it from being accessed by those who might misuse it, which adds an ongoing layer of tension as they remain cautious about potential threats from external forces. Emotionally, she continues to carry the memories of her time in the animal world, and these memories influence her decisions and actions, guiding her toward solutions that prioritize balance rather than exploitation. The film shows how her efforts begin inspiring others, including scientists, activists, and even ordinary people who start becoming more aware of their impact on the environment, creating a ripple effect that spreads beyond her immediate circle and begins shaping a broader movement toward sustainability and coexistence. At the same time, there are moments of doubt and challenge as she faces resistance from those who prioritize development and profit over environmental protection, which creates realistic conflict and shows that change is not easy and requires persistence, courage, and resilience. Despite these challenges, she remains determined, continuing to push forward because she knows what is at stake and refuses to let her experiences be forgotten or dismissed. The narrative also revisits the animal world, showing how the environment continues recovering slowly as rivers stabilize, vegetation begins to grow back, and animal communities adapt to the changes, which provides a sense of hope while also reminding the audience that the healing process takes time and must be protected to ensure long-term stability. The connection between the two worlds remains strong as her actions in the human world directly influence the recovery in the animal world, reinforcing the central theme of the film that everything is interconnected and that balance can only be achieved when both sides work together. As the story builds toward its final moments, the impact of her journey becomes more visible and meaningful, showing that one individual's understanding and courage can lead to significant change when combined with determination and a willingness to act. This part of the film sets up the conclusion by highlighting the progress that has been made while also emphasizing that the journey is ongoing and that the responsibility to protect the balance of the world does not end but continues into the future as a shared effort between humans and nature. As the story enters its final phase, the impact of the young scientist's journey becomes more visible across the world as her efforts begin transforming into real change that affects not only the specific ecosystem she fought to protect but also the broader understanding of how humans interact with nature, because her experience has created a powerful example that influences decisions at multiple levels, from local communities to global organizations. The construction project that once symbolized destruction is now under strict review, with new environmental regulations being implemented to ensure that future development projects consider the balance of ecosystems before moving forward, which marks a significant shift in how progress is approached. She continues working tirelessly alongside her team and environmental experts to refine policies and create sustainable solutions that allow growth without causing irreversible damage, demonstrating that coexistence is not only possible but necessary for long-term survival. Meanwhile, the technology she created becomes a central focus of both opportunity and risk, as it has the potential to revolutionize how humans understand animals and ecosystems, but also carries the danger of being misused if it falls into the wrong hands, which keeps an element of tension alive in the story as she and her colleagues take every precaution to secure it and ensure it is used only for ethical purposes. Emotionally, she continues to feel deeply connected to the animal world, often reflecting on her experiences and the bonds she formed, which serve as a constant reminder of why her mission is so important and keep her grounded in her purpose even when faced with challenges and resistance. The film also shows how her actions begin inspiring a new generation of scientists and environmentalists who see her as a symbol of change and are motivated to continue her work, creating a sense of legacy that extends beyond her individual journey and ensures that the impact of her experience will continue into the future. At the same time, glimpses of the animal world reveal that the environment is steadily recovering, with animals adapting to safer conditions and rebuilding their communities, which provides a sense of closure while also emphasizing that the healing process is ongoing and requires continued protection and care. The connection between the two worlds remains a central theme as her actions in the human world continue influencing the natural world in a positive way, reinforcing the idea that every decision has consequences and that balance can only be maintained through conscious effort and responsibility. The narrative builds toward its conclusion by highlighting both the progress that has been made and the challenges that still remain, creating a realistic portrayal of change as a continuous journey rather than a single victory. As she looks toward the future, she understands that her role is not finished and that the responsibility she carries will continue guiding her actions as she works to protect the balance between humans and nature, ensuring that the lessons learned from her journey are not forgotten but become a foundation for a better and more sustainable world moving forward. As the story continues unfolding toward its conclusion, the impact of the young scientist's journey begins reaching its full potential as the changes she initiated start becoming deeply rooted in both the human world and the natural world, creating a powerful sense of transformation that goes beyond a single event and becomes part of a larger movement toward balance and understanding. The environmental policies influenced by her work begin showing real results as construction projects are redesigned to minimize damage, ecosystems are monitored more carefully, and awareness campaigns help educate people about the importance of protecting natural habitats, which demonstrates that her efforts have created a lasting shift in how humans approach development and their relationship with nature. She continues playing an active role in these changes, working closely with experts, organizations, and communities to ensure that the momentum is maintained and that the lessons learned are not forgotten over time. At the same time, the technology she created is now being used in a controlled and ethical manner to study animal behavior and ecosystems, providing valuable insights that help improve conservation efforts, while strict regulations are put in place to prevent any misuse, which addresses one of the major concerns that ran throughout the story. Emotionally, she still carries a strong connection to the animal world, often revisiting the places she experienced through her memories and occasionally returning to the area where her journey began, observing how the environment has started to heal and how the animals are slowly rebuilding their lives, which gives her a sense of fulfillment but also reminds her of the responsibility that comes with maintaining this balance. The film shows several moments where she witnesses small but meaningful signs of recovery, such as cleaner water, healthier vegetation, and animals living with less fear, which reinforces the idea that positive change is possible when effort and awareness come together. However, the story also remains realistic by showing that not all challenges are resolved, as there are still areas where damage remains and ongoing efforts are required to fully restore balance, which keeps the narrative grounded and emphasizes that change is a continuous process rather than a final destination. The connection between the two worlds remains strong as her actions continue influencing both sides, and she becomes a symbol of what can be achieved when knowledge, empathy, and courage are combined with a willingness to act. The narrative uses this phase to reflect on the journey, highlighting how far she has come from a curious scientist to a responsible leader who understands the weight of her actions and the importance of using her abilities for the greater good. As the story builds toward its final moments, it focuses on the legacy she is creating, not just through policies or technology but through the inspiration she provides to others, encouraging them to think differently about their relationship with the world around them and to take responsibility for protecting it. This part sets the stage for the ultimate conclusion, where the long-term impact of her journey will be fully realized and the message of coexistence, respect, and balance will be solidified as the core theme of the story, leaving a lasting impression on both the characters and the audience. As the story approaches its final conclusion, the long-term impact of the young scientist's journey becomes fully visible as the changes she helped initiate continue spreading across different levels of society, creating a lasting transformation in how humans understand and interact with the natural world. The policies and systems influenced by her experience begin taking stronger shape as governments, organizations, and communities adopt more sustainable practices, ensuring that development is balanced with environmental protection, which reflects a major shift from the mindset that once prioritized growth without considering its consequences. She continues playing an important role in guiding these changes, using her knowledge and experience to ensure that the progress remains consistent and meaningful rather than temporary or superficial. At the same time, the technology she created evolves into a carefully controlled tool used for research, education, and conservation, allowing scientists to gain deeper insights into animal behavior and ecosystems without causing harm, which highlights the positive potential of innovation when used responsibly. Emotionally, she remains deeply connected to the animal world and often reflects on her journey, remembering the challenges, the bonds, and the lessons that shaped her understanding of life, which keeps her grounded and reminds her of the purpose behind everything she does. The film revisits the environment she once lived in, showing how it has continued to recover over time, with stronger ecosystems, healthier animal populations, and a sense of balance gradually returning, which serves as a visual representation of the success of her efforts, while also acknowledging that the process of healing is ongoing and requires continuous care. At the same time, there are still challenges and uncertainties that remain, as not all areas have fully recovered and new threats can always emerge, which reinforces the idea that protecting the balance of the world is a continuous responsibility rather than a one-time achievement. The connection between the human world and the natural world becomes stronger as more people begin understanding the importance of coexistence and take actions in their own lives to support this balance, creating a ripple effect that extends beyond the immediate story and into a broader message about collective responsibility. She also begins mentoring others, sharing her knowledge and encouraging a new generation to think differently about science, technology, and their role in protecting the planet, which ensures that her journey will have a lasting legacy that continues beyond her own actions. The narrative at this stage focuses on reflection, growth, and the realization that true change comes from understanding, empathy, and consistent effort rather than a single moment of action. As the story moves toward its final resolution, it highlights the balance that has been achieved while also reminding the audience that this balance must be protected and maintained through ongoing awareness and responsibility, creating a meaningful and realistic conclusion that emphasizes hope, progress, and the power of one individual's journey to inspire change on a much larger scale. As the story reaches its final and most meaningful resolution, the journey of the young scientist comes full circle as everything she has experienced transforms into a lasting legacy that continues shaping both the human world and the natural world in a balanced and hopeful direction, because the changes she fought for are no longer temporary but have become part of a larger system that values coexistence, responsibility, and respect for life. The world around her now reflects the results of her actions as environmental awareness has grown stronger, sustainable practices have become more widely accepted, and the connection between humans and nature is no longer ignored but actively protected through policies, education, and collective effort. She stands not only as a scientist but as a symbol of change, representing the idea that true understanding comes from experiencing the world beyond one's own perspective and using that knowledge to create a better future for all. The technology she created, which once carried the risk of misuse, is now carefully regulated and used only for positive purposes such as research, conservation, and education, ensuring that it remains a tool for understanding rather than control, which reinforces one of the core messages of the story, that power must always be guided by responsibility. Emotionally, she finds peace in knowing that the animals she once lived among are now safer and that the environment she fought to protect continues to recover and thrive. Even though she is no longer physically part of that world, her connection to it remains strong through her memories, her actions, and her ongoing commitment to protecting it. The film revisits the animal world one final time, showing a fully restored ecosystem where rivers flow naturally, forests grow strong, and animal communities live in harmony, which provides a sense of closure while also symbolizing the success of her journey and the possibility of a balanced future. At the same time, the story acknowledges that the work is never truly finished, as new challenges can always arise, but now there is a stronger foundation built on awareness, cooperation, and understanding, which makes the world better prepared to face whatever comes next. She continues inspiring others, sharing her story and encouraging people to think differently about their relationship with nature, showing that change begins with awareness but grows through action and responsibility. The narrative concludes with a powerful sense of hope as it emphasizes that even one individual can make a difference when they are willing to step beyond their comfort zone and act with courage, empathy, and determination. As she looks toward the future, she carries the lessons of her journey with her, knowing that her role as a bridge between two worlds will continue guiding her actions and shaping the path ahead, ensuring that the balance she fought for is not only preserved but strengthened over time. This final part brings the story to a satisfying and emotional close while leaving a lasting message that the connection between humans and nature is essential and that protecting it is a shared responsibility that defines the future of the world. As the story moves beyond its main resolution and into a reflective closing phase, the impact of the young scientist's journey continues to echo across both the human world and the natural world, showing that her actions were not just a temporary solution but the beginning of a long-lasting transformation that will continue shaping the future. The systems that were put in place after the events now operate as a strong foundation for maintaining environmental balance as governments, organizations, and communities work together more effectively, ensuring that development and nature can coexist without causing harm. She remains actively involved in guiding these efforts, not as someone seeking recognition but as a responsible leader who understands that real change requires constant attention and commitment. The technology she created becomes a symbol of both innovation and responsibility as it is now used in controlled environments to study ecosystems and improve conservation methods, while strict regulations ensure that it cannot be misused, which highlights the importance of ethical boundaries in scientific advancement. Emotionally, she continues to carry the memories of her time in the animal world, which influence her decisions and keep her connected to the purpose that drives her actions, reminding her of the importance of empathy and understanding in everything she does. The film revisits the animal world once again, showing how life continues to thrive as ecosystems grow stronger and animal communities adapt to a more stable environment, providing a sense of continuity and reassurance that the balance she fought for is being maintained. However, the narrative also subtly reminds the audience that the world is constantly changing and that new challenges may arise in the future, which keeps the story grounded in reality and emphasizes that responsibility does not end but continues as an ongoing effort. She begins sharing her experience with a wider audience through educational initiatives and public awareness campaigns, inspiring others to think differently about their relationship with nature and encouraging a new generation to take responsibility for protecting the planet, which ensures that her journey will have a lasting influence beyond her own actions. The connection between the human world and the natural world becomes stronger and more meaningful as people begin to understand that their choices have direct consequences and that maintaining balance requires cooperation, awareness, and respect for all forms of life. As she reflects on everything she has been through, she realizes that her journey was not just about solving a problem but about discovering a deeper truth about the interconnectedness of life and the role each individual plays in maintaining that balance. This part of the story serves as an extended conclusion that reinforces the central themes of the film while providing a sense of closure and continuity, showing that the impact of one person's courage and understanding can extend far beyond a single moment and create a ripple effect that continues shaping the world in positive ways for years to come. As the story continues into its extended conclusion, the world shaped by the young scientist's actions begins to evolve even further as the systems and awareness she helped create start becoming a natural part of everyday life rather than a response to a crisis, showing that true change has taken root and is now guiding the future in a more balanced direction. Communities across different regions begin adopting more sustainable ways of living, where development is planned with careful consideration for environmental impact and where the idea of coexistence between humans and nature becomes a shared responsibility rather than a distant concept. She continues playing a guiding role in this transformation, working not only with scientists and policymakers but also with educators and communities to ensure that the knowledge gained from her journey is passed on in a way that inspires long-term understanding and action. The technology she created becomes an important tool for education and research, allowing people to gain deeper insights into animal behavior, ecosystems, and the delicate balance that exists within nature, which helps strengthen the connection between the two worlds and encourages more responsible decision-making. Emotionally, she remains deeply connected to the animal world and often revisits the places that were once at the center of the crisis, observing how they have transformed into thriving ecosystems where life continues in harmony, which gives her a sense of fulfillment and reinforces the importance of the choices she made. The film highlights these moments with visually peaceful scenes that contrast with the earlier chaos, creating a strong emotional impact and reminding the audience of how far the world has come. At the same time, the narrative acknowledges that not all challenges have disappeared, as there are still areas that require attention and ongoing effort, which keeps the story grounded in reality and emphasizes that maintaining balance is a continuous process that requires dedication and awareness. The connection between humans and nature continues to grow stronger as more people become aware of their role in protecting the environment, leading to a cultural shift where respect for nature becomes an integral part of how society functions. She also begins mentoring and supporting new researchers and leaders who share her vision, ensuring that the movement she started will continue to grow and adapt over time even as new challenges emerge. The story uses this phase to reflect on the broader impact of her journey, showing that change is not defined by a single event but by the ongoing efforts of individuals and communities working together toward a common goal. As she looks toward the future, she understands that her journey was just the beginning and that the responsibility she carries will continue guiding her actions as she works to protect the balance between humans and nature, ensuring that the lessons learned from her experience remain a foundation for a better and more sustainable world moving forward. As the narrative continues unfolding in its final stretch, the long-term impact of the young scientist's journey becomes deeply integrated into the structure of society, as the changes she helped initiate are no longer seen as extraordinary but as necessary and natural steps toward a sustainable future where balance between humans and nature is maintained through conscious effort and shared responsibility. The environmental frameworks that were introduced after the crisis continue evolving with stronger enforcement, better technology, and wider public support, ensuring that ecosystems are protected while still allowing progress in a way that does not cause irreversible harm. She remains at the center of this transformation, not as a hero seeking recognition but as a guide who continues to influence decisions, inspire action, and ensure that the core message of coexistence remains strong across all levels of society. The technology she created, which once represented risk and uncertainty, is now a carefully managed tool used in education, research, and conservation, helping scientists and communities better understand animal behavior and environmental systems, which strengthens the connection between the two worlds and reinforces the importance of empathy in scientific advancement. Emotionally, she continues to carry the memory of her time in the animal world as a defining part of her identity, often revisiting those experiences to remind herself of the responsibility she carries and the reason behind her work. The film shows how the environment she once fought to protect has now become a thriving example of what is possible when awareness and action come together, as forests grow stronger, water flows naturally, and animal communities live in a more stable and secure ecosystem, providing a powerful visual representation of the success of her journey. However, the narrative also maintains a realistic tone by acknowledging that challenges still exist as environmental issues in other parts of the world require attention, reminding the audience that the work of maintaining balance is ongoing and requires continuous effort and vigilance. She begins expanding her efforts globally, working with international organizations to apply the lessons learned from her experience to other regions, creating a wider impact that extends beyond the original setting of the story and shows how one individual's journey can influence change on a global scale. The connection between humans and nature continues strengthening as more people adopt sustainable practices and develop a deeper understanding of their role in protecting the planet, creating a cultural shift that supports long-term balance and harmony. As she reflects on everything she has achieved, she understands that her journey was not just about solving a single problem but about creating a path forward where knowledge, empathy, and responsibility guide the relationship between humans and the natural world, ensuring that the mistakes of the past are not repeated and that the future remains hopeful and sustainable for generations to come. As the story continues toward its final reflective phase, the transformation initiated by the young scientist becomes deeply rooted in both human systems and natural ecosystems, as the balance she fought for begins to feel like a new normal rather than a fragile achievement. And this shift highlights the true success of her journey because it shows that change has moved beyond a temporary reaction and has become part of the world's ongoing structure, where awareness, responsibility, and coexistence guide everyday decisions. The policies and practices influenced by her work continue expanding, with stronger environmental protections, more sustainable development models, and improved collaboration between scientists, governments, and communities, ensuring that progress does not come at the cost of nature but instead works alongside it. She remains actively involved in these efforts, but her role evolves from being a direct problem solver to becoming a mentor and leader who helps guide others toward making informed and responsible choices, which reflects her growth from an individual acting alone to someone who inspires collective action on a much larger scale. The technology she created continues to play a significant role in this transformation as it is used responsibly in research and conservation, allowing deeper understanding of ecosystems and helping to prevent potential environmental threats before they become critical, while strict ethical guidelines ensure that it remains a tool for good rather than exploitation. Emotionally, she finds a sense of peace and fulfillment in knowing that the world she fought to protect is not only recovering but thriving, as she revisits the environment where her journey began and witnesses the continued growth of forests, the return of biodiversity, and the harmony among animal communities, which serves as a powerful reminder of what can be achieved through determination and empathy. However, the narrative remains grounded by acknowledging that the work is never truly finished, as new challenges can always arise, and maintaining balance requires constant effort, awareness, and adaptability, which reinforces one of the film's key messages that responsibility does not end with success but continues as an ongoing commitment. The connection between humans and nature becomes stronger than ever as people begin integrating sustainable practices into their daily lives and developing a deeper respect for the natural world, which leads to a cultural shift that supports long-term harmony and reduces the likelihood of repeating past mistakes. She also continues sharing her story on a global scale, inspiring others to take action and become part of the movement toward protecting the planet, ensuring that her journey leaves a lasting legacy that extends far beyond her own actions. As the story moves closer to its conclusion, it emphasizes reflection, growth, and the understanding that true change is not defined by a single event but by the continuous effort of individuals and communities working together toward a shared goal, creating a meaningful and hopeful narrative that highlights the power of knowledge, empathy, and responsibility in shaping a better future for both humans and the natural world. As the story continues into its final extended reflection, the journey of the young scientist transforms into a lasting legacy that reshapes not only systems and environments but also the mindset of people across the world, as the ideas of balance, responsibility, and coexistence become deeply embedded into how society functions on a daily level. The changes that once seemed difficult and uncertain are now being accepted as necessary and beneficial as communities, governments, and organizations work together more effectively to ensure that development and nature can exist side by side without causing harm, creating a new standard for progress that values sustainability as much as innovation. She continues to play an important role in guiding these changes, but her presence becomes less about leading from the front and more about empowering others to take responsibility and continue the work she started, which reflects her evolution into a true leader whose impact extends beyond her individual actions. The technology she created remains an important part of this transformation as it is now used in controlled and ethical ways to study ecosystems, improve conservation efforts, and educate people about the importance of understanding nature from a perspective that goes beyond observation, allowing deeper empathy and connection between humans and the natural world. Emotionally, she continues to feel a strong connection to the animal world and often returns to the environment that once defined her journey, observing how it has grown into a thriving and balanced ecosystem where life continues in harmony, which gives her a sense of fulfillment while also reminding her of the responsibility to protect that balance moving forward. The film shows these moments with calm and visually rich scenes that contrast with the earlier chaos, creating a sense of closure while also reinforcing the message that positive change is possible when effort and understanding come together. However, the narrative also remains realistic by acknowledging that challenges still exist in other parts of the world where ecosystems are under threat and require attention, which keeps the story grounded and emphasizes that the journey toward balance is ongoing and requires continuous effort from everyone. The connection between humans and nature continues to strengthen as more people become aware of their role in protecting the environment, leading to a cultural shift where respect for nature becomes a fundamental part of everyday life rather than an optional choice. She also begins supporting global initiatives, mentoring new leaders, and sharing her experience on a wider scale, ensuring that the knowledge she gained continues to inspire future generations and create a ripple effect that extends far beyond her own story. As the narrative moves closer to its final conclusion, it highlights the importance of collective effort and the idea that lasting change is built through consistent actions rather than single moments of success, creating a powerful and meaningful message that encourages the audience to reflect on their own role in maintaining the balance of the world and protecting the future for generations to come. As the story continues toward its final closing moments, the legacy of the young scientist becomes even more deeply rooted in the world, as the transformation she initiated is no longer limited to specific regions or systems but has expanded into a global movement where awareness, responsibility, and respect for nature are becoming core values that influence decisions at every level of society. The systems that were once introduced as corrective measures are now evolving into long-term frameworks that guide sustainable development, environmental protection, and ethical use of technology, ensuring that the balance between progress and nature is maintained in a way that benefits both worlds. She continues to play an important role in shaping this future, but her focus shifts more toward supporting and mentoring others who are now stepping forward to carry the mission forward, which reflects the true success of her journey as it shows that the impact she created is self-sustaining and capable of growing beyond her individual efforts. The technology she developed continues to be used responsibly in research, education, and conservation, providing deeper insights into ecosystems and helping prevent potential environmental threats before they escalate, while strict safeguards remain in place to ensure that it is never misused for harmful purposes. Emotionally, she finds a sense of peace in knowing that the world she once fought to protect is not only recovering but thriving, as she revisits the environment where her journey began and observes the continued growth of forests, the return of wildlife, and the harmony among animal communities, which serves as a powerful reminder of what can be achieved when knowledge, empathy, and action come together. The narrative uses these moments to highlight the contrast between the past destruction and the present recovery, creating a strong emotional impact that reinforces the central message of the film. However, the story also maintains a realistic perspective by acknowledging that the work is never truly finished, as new challenges can always arise, and maintaining balance requires constant vigilance, adaptability, and collective effort, which ensures that the narrative remains grounded and meaningful. The connection between humans and nature continues to strengthen as more people adopt sustainable practices and develop a deeper understanding of their role in protecting the environment, creating a cultural shift that supports long-term harmony and reduces the likelihood of repeating past mistakes. She also continues sharing her knowledge and experience through global platforms, inspiring individuals and communities to take responsibility and become part of the ongoing effort to protect the planet, ensuring that her journey leaves a lasting impact that extends far beyond her own story. As the narrative moves closer to its final conclusion, it emphasizes that true change is not defined by a single victory but by the continuous effort to maintain balance and harmony, creating a powerful and hopeful message that encourages the audience to reflect on their own role in shaping the future of the world and protecting the delicate connection between humans and nature as the story continues into its final extended closing. The impact of the young scientist's journey reaches a level where it becomes part of a global mindset shift rather than just a series of changes in systems or policies, because the awareness she helped create now influences how people think, feel, and act toward nature on a daily basis, making coexistence not just an idea but a way of life that continues shaping the future in a meaningful direction. The environmental frameworks that were once introduced as necessary reforms now evolve into long-term global standards, guiding development, conservation, and technological advancement in a balanced way that ensures progress does not come at the cost of the planet but instead works in harmony with it. She continues contributing to this transformation not as the sole leader but as a guiding force who empowers others to take initiative, share responsibility, and continue expanding the movement, which reflects the true success of her journey because it shows that the change she inspired is no longer dependent on her alone but has become self-sustaining and capable of growing across generations. The technology she created becomes a cornerstone of this new era as it is used responsibly across research, education, and conservation fields, allowing deeper understanding of ecosystems and helping prevent environmental threats before they escalate, while strict ethical guidelines ensure that it remains a tool for positive impact rather than exploitation. Emotionally, she continues carrying the connection to the animal world within her as a defining part of her identity, often revisiting the environment where her journey began and observing how it has transformed into a thriving, balanced ecosystem filled with life, which gives her a sense of fulfillment and reinforces the purpose behind everything she has done. The film uses these moments to highlight the beauty of recovery and the possibility of renewal, creating a powerful contrast with the earlier destruction and emphasizing that positive change is achievable when awareness and action come together. However, the narrative remains grounded by acknowledging that challenges still exist in other parts of the world and that maintaining balance requires continuous effort, vigilance, and adaptability, which reinforces the idea that responsibility is an ongoing commitment rather than a one-time achievement. The connection between humans and nature becomes stronger than ever as more people integrate sustainable practices into their lives and develop a deeper respect for the environment, creating a cultural shift that supports long-term harmony and reduces the likelihood of repeating past mistakes. She also continues sharing her story and knowledge through global platforms, inspiring individuals, communities, and future leaders to take responsibility and become part of the ongoing effort to protect the planet, ensuring that her journey leaves a lasting legacy that continues shaping the world long after the events of the story have concluded. As the narrative moves closer to its final resolution, it emphasizes that true change is built through collective effort and consistent action, creating a meaningful and hopeful message that encourages the audience to reflect on their own role in maintaining the balance of the world and protecting the future for generations to come. As the story continues toward its final closing reflections, the journey of the young scientist becomes more than just a personal transformation and evolves into a lasting symbol of how understanding, empathy, and responsibility can reshape the relationship between humans and the natural world on a global scale, because the impact of her actions has now reached a point where it influences not only policies and systems but also everyday choices made by individuals, creating a ripple effect that continues growing stronger over time. The environmental balance that was once threatened now stands as a carefully maintained system supported by cooperation between governments, organizations, scientists, and communities, ensuring that progress and nature exist in harmony rather than conflict, which represents a major shift from the mindset that existed at the beginning of the story. She continues contributing to this evolving world by guiding new initiatives, mentoring future leaders, and ensuring that the knowledge gained from her journey is preserved and shared in a way that inspires long-term change rather than temporary solutions. The technology she created remains an important part of this new era as it is used ethically and responsibly to deepen understanding of ecosystems and improve conservation efforts, while strict regulations ensure that it cannot be misused, which reinforces one of the central messages of the film, that power must always be guided by responsibility and awareness. Emotionally, she carries a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose as she continues visiting the environment that once defined her journey, witnessing how it has transformed into a thriving ecosystem where animals live with stability and natural harmony, which serves as a powerful reminder of what can be achieved when effort and empathy come together. The film highlights these moments with calm and visually rich scenes that contrast with the earlier chaos, creating a strong emotional connection and reinforcing the idea that healing and growth are possible even after significant destruction. However, the narrative also remains realistic by acknowledging that the world is constantly changing and that new challenges can always emerge, which keeps the message grounded and emphasizes that maintaining balance requires continuous effort, awareness, and adaptability from everyone. The connection between humans and nature continues strengthening as more people adopt sustainable practices and develop a deeper understanding of their role in protecting the environment, creating a cultural shift that supports long-term harmony and reduces the likelihood of repeating past mistakes. She also continues sharing her story across different platforms, inspiring individuals, communities, and future generations to take responsibility and become part of the ongoing effort to protect the planet, ensuring that her journey leaves a lasting legacy that extends far beyond her own experience. As the narrative approaches its final moments, it emphasizes that true change is not defined by a single event but by the continuous effort of individuals and communities working together toward a shared goal, creating a powerful and hopeful conclusion that encourages the audience to reflect on their own role in shaping the future and protecting the delicate balance between humans and the natural world. As the story moves even closer to its ultimate conclusion, the journey of the young scientist reaches a stage where its impact is no longer measured only by visible changes in the environment or systems but by the deeper transformation in human thinking and collective behavior, as the awareness she helped create becomes a natural part of how people understand their connection to the world around them, leading to a more conscious and responsible way of living that continues shaping the future in a meaningful and sustainable direction. The balance between development and nature, which was once fragile and constantly threatened, now stands as a carefully maintained equilibrium supported by strong cooperation between global organizations, governments, scientific communities, and local populations, ensuring that progress is guided by long-term sustainability rather than short-term gain. She continues contributing to this evolving world by taking on a role that combines leadership, mentorship, and advocacy, working closely with different groups to ensure that the momentum of change is not only maintained but strengthened over time as new challenges emerge. The technology she created remains a powerful tool within this new framework as it is used responsibly to deepen understanding of ecosystems, support conservation efforts, and educate people about the importance of empathy and awareness, while strict safeguards continue protecting it from misuse, reinforcing the idea that innovation must always be balanced with ethical responsibility. Emotionally, she carries a lasting connection to the animal world, which remains a central part of her identity and purpose, often revisiting the environment where her journey began and observing how it has transformed into a thriving ecosystem filled with life, stability, and harmony, which serves as a powerful reminder of the difference that can be made through determination and understanding. The film highlights these moments with a sense of calm and beauty, showing how the world has healed while also subtly reminding the audience that this balance must be protected through continuous effort and awareness. The narrative also acknowledges that despite the progress that has been made, there are still areas of the world facing environmental challenges, which reinforces the message that the journey toward balance is ongoing and requires a collective commitment from everyone rather than relying on a single individual or event. The connection between humans and nature continues to grow stronger as more people adopt sustainable practices and develop a deeper respect for the environment, creating a cultural shift that supports long-term harmony and reduces the likelihood of repeating past mistakes. She also continues sharing her story on a global scale, inspiring individuals, communities, and future leaders to take responsibility and become part of the ongoing effort to protect the planet, ensuring that her journey leaves a lasting legacy that continues influencing the world long after the events of the story have concluded. As the narrative approaches its final moments, it emphasizes that true change is built on consistent effort, shared responsibility, and a willingness to learn from the past, creating a powerful and meaningful message that encourages the audience to reflect on their own role in shaping the future and protecting the delicate balance that connects all life on Earth as the story reaches its final concluding phase. The journey of the young scientist becomes a complete circle of transformation where everything she has experienced, from curiosity to struggle to responsibility, now forms a lasting legacy that continues shaping the world in a balanced and meaningful way, because the changes she initiated have moved beyond temporary solutions and have become a permanent part of how humanity approaches nature, technology, and progress. The world around her now reflects a new level of awareness where environmental protection is not treated as an obstacle to development but as an essential part of it, ensuring that growth happens in harmony with nature rather than at its expense, which represents the ultimate success of her efforts and the realization of the central message of the story. She continues to play a role in guiding this new direction, but her presence is no longer defined by action alone, as her influence can be seen in the systems, the people, and the mindset that now carry forward the mission she started, showing that true impact is measured by what continues even when the initial struggle is over. The technology she created stands as a symbol of both the potential and responsibility of human innovation, as it is now used carefully and ethically to deepen understanding of ecosystems, support conservation, and strengthen the connection between humans and the natural world while remaining protected from misuse, which reinforces the importance of balancing knowledge with wisdom. Emotionally, she finds peace in knowing that the animal world she once lived in continues to thrive as the environment has been restored, and the balance she fought for is now being maintained through collective effort, which gives her journey a sense of fulfillment while also reminding her that this balance must always be protected. The film revisits the natural world in its final moments, showing vibrant ecosystems, flowing rivers, and animals living in harmony, creating a visually powerful conclusion that contrasts with the destruction seen earlier and highlights the possibility of renewal and growth. At the same time, the narrative remains grounded by acknowledging that the future will always bring new challenges and that the responsibility to maintain balance does not end but continues as an ongoing effort shared by everyone. The connection between humans and nature now stands stronger than ever as people have developed a deeper understanding of their role in protecting the environment, leading to a cultural shift that supports long-term sustainability and reduces the risk of repeating past mistakes. She continues sharing her story, inspiring others to think differently, act responsibly, and become part of the ongoing effort to protect the planet, ensuring that her journey leaves a lasting impact that extends far beyond her own experience. As the story concludes, it